Well, next we're going to hear from Lou Barnes, candidate for state representative. You know, it's not everyone who can say that they grew up on the grounds of the state penitentiary where their father was the deputy warden, but Lou can. He worked with Georgia Pacific Corporation and was getting his degree in business and accounting from Portland State University, and so that kind of melded together, and then he became ultimately the controller at the Portland Division and International Operations in Georgia Pacific Corporation. Then he accepted a different controller position, went to Tube Forgings of America in Portland, and was with them for a good while. And then in 1988, he founded Summit Manufacturing, Inc., a company that was devoted to servicing OEMs, or original equipment manufacturers, offload steel fabricated requirements. And if the word Marines is not in Lou's family just on a regular basis, I'd really be surprised. I think it runs in his family, not only with his own background, but his two children, both his son Lou and his daughter Jackie. So please meet Lou Barnes.
Thanks for the invite this evening, and this is the last time I want to be last, because all I need to say is ditto, ditto, and ditto, and you'll understand why. I'm going to have to adjust some of what I wanted to speak to this evening, because literally it was previously covered, and Gary did a great job on a lot of those points that I was going to touch on, but I'll try to skim over them now. The answer to the question that we're faced with this evening, what are some of the ways in which we can make Oregon more business friendly, and in doing so reverse the economic decline in the state, are really quite simple and straightforward. The difficult part is going to be in the implementation of those things that we feel that we could make the state a little bit more business friendly. I'm going to try to recap what Gary spoke to and a little bit about what Mike spoke to. What is the prime reason we're in the fix that we are in today? As we're all aware, Oregon has some of the highest corporate and individual income tax rates, as well as the highest capital gain tax rate in the nation. The size and scope of state government has expanded exponentially over the last several decades. As Gary mentioned, we have 180 state agencies with 11,000 agency rules. In the last 4 years alone, the state has implemented 150 new programs at a cost of $10 billion. Over the last 10 years, our state budget has ballooned from $29 billion to $60 billion. You think about the size and scope of what I just articulated. That takes billions upon billions upon billions of dollars sucked out of the private sector to fund this operation. That capital could have been used by businesses to reinvest in their plant and equipment, inventories, research and development. It reduced the purchasing power of our consumers. The natural impact of that is demand drops. What does business have to do? React to that drop in demand, reduce their operation, which does what? Creates higher unemployment. That's the problem we're in today. Government continually seems to want to service the symptoms of a failing economy as opposed to address the problem. I believe Representative Parrish mentioned that we have 22% of the people in this state on food stamps. We've got a 40% dropout rate in our K-12 educational system. We've got about a 19% jobless rate in this state. None of those factors the state wants to focus on. It's how do we get more revenue to support these entitlement programs. I believe Karen wanted today, we had the actionable items paper, and one of the issues I was trying to focus on, I'll just kind of streamline this thing and bring it down to a small point, was the permitting process, and I think Gary touched on a number of those points. I can speak to two issues that I'm somewhat involved with in my prior experience at running for office, and it had to do with a company by the name of Northern Star Energy that was headquartered in Houston, Texas. That company wanted to come to Oregon and establish an LNG facility on the Columbia River at a place called Bradwood Landing, which geographically is about 20 miles this side of Astoria. If that project were to have been brought to fruition, it would have created about 250 construction jobs. It would have created somewhere between 50 and 60 permanent, well-paying jobs, $60,000 to $70,000 a year. It would have paid Clatsop County about $8 million in property taxes, not to mention the corporate and personal income taxes that would have been revenue to the state. What did in fact happen was it took them 5.5 years. They spent $120 million and ended up in bankruptcy. I can't imagine why any company of an energy-based business plan would want to even try to start a business here in Oregon. The question then became, as I started reviewing this, is why did it take so long and cost so much money and end up in a bankruptcy? When I reviewed this last week, I had the owner of Bradwood Landing in my office, and he kind of educated me onto the 1, 2, 3s because I wasn't personally involved in this equation. The first thing he came up with was that there were 10 different agencies that were involved in this process, both from a state and a national level. There is no clear roadmap for a business to navigate their way through this minefield, so they have to hire batteries of lawyers to go in there that understand all the legal jargon and the rules and the regulations and help them move through the process. The second thing that they were confronted with was the extreme environmentalists were injecting themselves into this process at every available moment, whether it be the company holding an informational meeting, whether it had been the DEQ or the DSL holding a meeting and wanting input from the community. They were always there, they were always disruptive, and they were continually trying to file appeals and lawsuits to hold the project up. Ultimately, they were successful. The third and the most troubling thing that I discovered was that elected officials and bureaucrats openly advocated for this project to fail. Think about that for a minute. We're talking about creating jobs here, and we had then Governor Ted Kulongoski. This is a quote: "I don't want anyone else to buy that property." He made that statement in an interview with the Daily Asturian. And a little bit of background on this is that the Federal Energy and Regulatory Commission had already issued a permit to Northern Star Energy. Even though they were in bankruptcy, that permit was now an asset of that corporation. Somebody could have bought the assets of the corporation out of bankruptcy and continued on with this project and potentially have brought it to a successful conclusion. Governor Kulongoski had the Attorney General file an appeal in federal court to have that permit returned. That's what we're faced with in this state. The fix, as I see it, on the first point was to improve the information and coordination between all of these different agencies so that it gives a business a little bit better vision as to what it is I need to do to grant those permits. I don't know if this is possible. I'm not a lawyer, but somehow we should be able to enact legislation. I think a friend of mine pointed out to me that they have this in England, whereby if you file suit, i.e. the Columbia River Keepers file a suit against Northern Star Energy to put a halt to their project, that if they fail, they have to pay. I think that would probably help alleviate that thing from continuing. The third issue is to bar elected officials from openly advocating against one business over another. That isn't their job. Their job, a job of a legislator, is to ensure that we have a sound set of rules that everybody follows and that everybody can anticipate that they're going to get a fair hearing when they go through it. I think that's ultimately what needs to be happening. The signal that this sends to other people, other businesses around the company to come to Oregon is not a good one. And unless we change the way our legislators and our government officials are thinking about this, we're not going to be able to attract many people. One second, please. For the last few minutes, we've been kind of hovering around ground level here, and so I want to jerk on the collective and get us up to about 10,000 feet. What really needs to happen is for government to start looking at a business as the proverbial golden goose, and not to look at it as an ATM machine. What this is going to require is a paradigm shift of major proportions, and that's going to have to start at the top. Until government realizes that the most important part of a successful, vibrant, and free society is a healthy and thriving economy, we will be discussing the issue that we are this evening forever.